Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name's Corey Webb, and I'm Marketing Director here at Churn Zero. And I'd like to welcome you to our webinar titled Stop Volunteering Your Team Away, How to Define, Design, and Deliver Premium Customer Success Packages. I'll give a moment just for folks to join in as we just go over some brief housekeeping notes. Before we get started, I do want to remind you that we are recording today's session. A link to the recording will be available tomorrow. We'll send that out to everyone via email, so keep an eye out for that. Throughout the presentation, please go ahead and submit your questions in the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We also have the chat open today, so that will allow you to engage with us and each other, and we encourage that, so please use the chat. And then, as I said, we'll get to as many of the actual Q&A questions as we can at the end of this webinar. Now I'm pleased to introduce to you our speaker today. We have Donna Weber. Donna is the leading expert in customer onboarding and value realization. For more than 2 decades, she's helped companies transform new and existing customers into loyal champions. Donna also has a book titled Onboarding Matters: How Successful Companies Transform New Customers into Loyal Customers, which I definitely recommend checking out. And so with that, I will turn it over to you, Donna.
Thank you so much. Can you hear
Yeah.
and see me?
I can. We're good to go.
Let's do it. Great. Thank you all. Your time is precious, and I really appreciate you spending time with me and Corey and Churn Zero today. So let's get started. We're talking about how to stop volunteering your team away, how to define, design, and deliver premium customer success packages. Okay. So to charge or not to charge, that is the question. I will dive more into this, but we'll look at this. Now, I want you to imagine a time when your customers are accountable and engaged during onboarding and beyond. Your team is secure and you hire the resources you need. Sales reps are excited to partner with you and your team. And your customers have faster time to some initial first value and a longer lifetime value. So does this sound appealing? Type in yes in the chat if you can imagine a time like that. So in this webinar, where I'll describe the benefits of charging for customer success services, enhancing both customer satisfaction and company profitability. We'll define a bundled subscription service to onboard, enable, and guide customers toward ongoing value. We'll design a go-to-market plan to successfully introduce your new product to the market, and will deliver increasing levels of value to your customers and your company, ensuring sustainable growth and success. So that's why we're here. Let's make it happen. So just a bit about me, as Corey was sharing, I wrote the book Onboarding Matters. Coming up to 4 years since it's been out. I'm a recognized customer success leader and strategist. And when I'm not helping companies increase their customer retention and expansion, I like to be outdoors having adventures. Next month, I'll be kayaking in Ecuador. If you've been to Ecuador, type in Ecuador and let me know, because I'll want to chat with you. All right, so this is what I do. I help high growth companies transform new customers into loyal champions, scale their customer onboarding and success and enablement, decrease time to that first value, maximize customer lifetime value, and accelerate product usage and adoption. All right, so let's look at some of the challenges you might be facing. So I want you to type in the word ghost or a ghost image. If you have a hard time keeping customers engaged, like you're ready to kick off the project, you're ready to have your meetings, you're ready to deliver value, but customers are ghosting you. Anyone seeing ghosts? When you try to, so we got Karen, Jonathan, Hannah, Alan. So unfortunately, ghosts are too familiar. Okay, what about another challenge you might be facing? You are having to do more with less these days. So type in the word help if you're having to do more with less these days. That seems to be a trend. across companies. Lots of help. I'm sorry to hear that. It's a real challenge. I know also a lot of companies are reducing uh, 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 teams right now, so the people left behind are having to do a lot more with less. What about, tell me about, our sales teams engaged? Type in the words, uh, um, familiar, if this sounds familiar. You know, I'm working with a company right now where the sales reps tell the customer success managers, don't touch my customers. Everything has to go through the sales reps, the customer success managers can't even engage the customers without going through the sales rep. So type in familiar if that sounds familiar. And then the next one, are you unable to invest in your team? Type in the word, so Alan says their sales team rocks. So that's good to hear. Type in the word budget. If you're unable to invest in your team, maybe there's tools you want to get like a customer success platform like Churn Zero. And you're just told, yeah, make do with what you have. So budget, lots of budget. That seems to be the most, familiar. Olivia's in an 8-person startup, so absolutely. So those are some of the challenges you might be facing. So let's look at some of the benefits of having a premium package. And I like to call it a premium package. I also sometimes call it a happy meal. And we'll look at, well, what's involved in a premium package. So I like to say that it's time to take customer-facing services as seriously as our products. So, in the world of software as a service, you take a product and you're selling it as a service where you sell it, people are kind of renting it and spending and paying you monthly or yearly for that. And we can turn a service like customer success, customer education, customer onboarding, supports a service that companies charge for. And you can charge for it and turn it into a product. So let's look at some of the benefits of that. And Colleen, you share that you do often premium packages, but few customers take advantage. So let's talk about how to ensure that internal teams and customers are taking advantage as well. So some of the benefits of having premium customer success packages is that you are able to invest in your offerings to deliver higher levels of service. So it gets you more into the proactive versus the reactive. You're running a business, so you can determine where to invest in your team. You go from being a cost center to being maybe a break-even center or ideally even a profit center. And what that means is then you have a budget and you're a bit more in control of your team's destiny and how you spend your money. It really changes the conversations you have internally when you're not a cost center, because when times are tough, chief financial officers are looking at where they can cut costs. But if you're bringing in revenue, that changes the story. Now you're a service, you're not the main product, so you're never going to bring in tons of revenue. It's always going to be a drop in the bucket, but it really changes the story when you are bringing revenue in. Then your leadership teams and your boards are going to be delighted. I'll share a bit about what I did at a company. Customers and sales reps are more engaged. So customers are more engaged because guess what? When they pay for something, they're more likely to show up, right? They're more likely to take the action. Sales reps are more engaged because if they have something else to sell and some more profit to make, they are going to be really engaged. And I'll tell you a story about that. It will help you to deliver faster time to value because customers are engaged. And it really can give your company a competitive advantage because it goes beyond just selling software, but it means you have the right tools and services and methodology and framework to really drive value. That's what's most important. All right, so I have questions for you. So one, type in premium if you do provide premium packages. We get a sense of how many of you have premium packages. We've got Karen, Jacob, Gail, Danielle, Jamie. Great. So quite a few of you do provide premium packages. Next question, do you charge for them? So type in the $ if you do charge for them. All right. Now, if you charge for them, are you breaking even? Do you have a margin? A margin means that you're actually making a profit. So a margin would mean like maybe you charge 10,000, but it's only costing you 8,000, then you'd have a 20% margin, right? Oh, okay. So Craig has a big margin, so we might want to learn from you, Craig. 83% margin. Great. So a lot of you understand that. What about, one of the challenges is companies do charge for things like onboarding, but then the the sales reps are often giving it away. So they're often, they discount it away. So type in discount if that's pretty common for you. So like, oh yeah, we charge for it, but we actually never really make any money. So the discounts is a big, so we only have one, no discount. That's a big deal because you might charge for it, but if it's always giving away, you're still a cost center. Okay, yeah, and JT is working hard to kill giveaways. So this is, thank you. This is really helpful. So let's explore what is included in the premium package, and I'd love to you to share what you include when I get to the next few slides. So a premium package is everything that customers want and need to be successful. And so, for example, let's say when customers purchase the instructor-led training and when they have a dedicated customer success managers, you just know they're going to thrive, right? But what we want to move from using hope as a strategy, hoping customers purchase the training, hoping sales reps sell the dedicated CSM. You want to move from hope to just providing customers everything they need to thrive with your product, to be your champions, and refer you, right? And to grow. And so let's look at some of the things that you might include. Now, I talk about year 1 and year 2 because I really recommend if you have a subscription product to sell your customer success product as a subscription as well. Because I told you I have a story to tell. I worked at a company where I created an education online learning portal, and it was on demand. And I was trying to sell training, and the sales reps would never include it because they didn't get as high commission as they do when they sell a subscription product. So I turned it into a subscription, and the attachment rates increased. The sales reps they sold it with every deal because they made more money on it. So that's what you want to think about is how do you bring in recurring revenue? Because that's what your board and your leaders want is recurring revenue. So here's some ideas. So one, you have onboarding services, implementation services, charge for that. It's going to deliver faster time to first value. You're going to really keep customers engaged. You can include a dedicated customer success manager, premium support. That's probably something you already sell. There's a lot of companies sell support, but that's very reactive. So we want customers moving out of this reactive phase to proactive. So these are all proactive tools to ensure that they'll be successful. And then training, maybe you have some on-demand training, maybe you have some instructor-led training, maybe a premium package would include some dedicated training, right? And the idea is that you create this happy meal where it's everything customers want and need to be successful. And if you're not sure what they want and need to be successful, a great way is to learn from your best customers. Find out those best customers, like despite all odds, they're thriving with your product. Find out, like, hey, what did you purchase? What made the difference? Maybe, another thing you could include in here, which I should add on, is change management services, right? Helping them really with the whole rollout and the adoption for the end users. I'm talking with a couple companies about that right now, how important change management is. So that might be a whole nother thing. Maybe you're rolling out a center of excellence for large enterprise companies. That is a great thing with templates and tools and resources. So I'm going to add those on this slide. So those are all sorts of things that would help in year one. I'm just writing those down so I remember. Great. So, but wait, there's more. What do you do in year two and beyond? How do you keep customers buying a subscription? So you might have ongoing onboarding. Well, what does that mean? Like I talked with a company that has a project management tool and they do this amazing job of that initial onboarding. They get all the initial teams onboarded and enabled and adopting, and that's great. But their growth strategy is land and expand, and they don't do anything to onboard and enable all the additional teams. So how are you going to drive that expansion across a company when you're kind of hoping customers that, the additional teams figure out how to use the tool, right? You have to proactively do that. In some industries, there's high turnover. I'm talking with a company right now where they have a product for auto dealerships. There's high turnover, so you can't just onboard and enable that your champions might leave. So you got to always be onboarding and enabling those and building new champions. Otherwise, you are at risk. Another thing you can do is health checks and performance tuning. So maybe a year in, you go, you say, hey, Corey, let's talk about how you're using our product. And you look through what they're doing, share some best practices. One company I know does reverse demos. So they would say, hey, Corey, I want you to demo how you use our product to me. And then they learn a lot about how customers are really using the product and might build out some new use cases to share with all customers. And two, they might say, well, gosh, it looks like you're doing some great things in these modules, but what about all of this other stuff? So health checks and performance tuning are great ways to really drive that depth and breadth within your solution. Again, you might have that dedicated CSM. Maybe, sometimes you think, oh, it's a small customer and we have our CSM pool, but maybe they'd be willing to pay for a dedicated CSM, right? Because maybe they're a small company and they don't have the resources that they need and they're willing to pay you for that. Premium support, training, we talked about it. And then there's that like maturity and expansion services, as well as center of excellence, things like that. For training, you might, I've seen companies where they have a subscription where they actually deploy all of the product training within their customers' learning management systems. And that's a subscription because they're always uploading the latest and greatest training into their customers' LMSs. All right. I just want to see. Yeah, so Harrison talks about a technical account manager to help with ongoing technical config support. And that's a great approach. I worked at a company where we also had customer success engineers. And like they weren't support, they weren't professional services, but they were there to really talk through complex technical scenarios and guide customers along the right path rather than waiting till customers, fell into dug a hole that they couldn't climb out of and then needed all this help with support. So again, it was very proactive, and that was something that they paid for. Let's talk about a company I worked with. They brought me in because customer onboarding was taking too long and they wanted to reduce it from 8 weeks to 4 weeks because they couldn't recognize revenue until their product went live. And so I did an assessment, and what we uncovered was that the reality was that onboarding was taking 12 weeks, 50% longer than they thought. And when I shared that with their CEO, like he was just speechless. He didn't even know what to say. So then our goal was to reduce the onboarding from 12 weeks to 8 weeks. And the big thing that they were doing was all this data migration, data conversion, and customizing invoices and customer communications for their clients, for their customers. And so what we found was they were doing a lot of manual work and spending a lot of time. I'm just going to stop sharing while I do the case study. They were spending a lot of time with every account. And so what we looked at was we created a standard package, like, okay, customers, here's the standard package for all this data conversion. And we defined what it was included, and that we put a fee to that for $10,000. And then we created a premium package, which kind of did all this customizations, and it was more specific to what the customers wanted and needed, so that the teams could really get clear about what was standard and what was premium, because they were just doing anything customers asked for and getting really pulled into these rabbit holes. That's one. And then two, they charged customers who wanted, so if customers want some premium things, great, but you charge for it. So we charged $20,000 for that. And then we created a very clear definition. Hey, this is included, like the little check marks, when you look at product pricing pages, this is included in the standard. And then created content for this to enable the sales teams, because the sales teams would have to sell this. This was a one-off package. It wasn't a subscription. But one, it brought in revenue. It covered the costs of all the internal teams' time. And then it also really meant the customers would be engaged to drive that faster time to launch, which meant for this company, by getting to revenue recognition a month earlier, meant they were able to recognize an additional $500,000 a year in revenue. So that was a way to create something. You're already doing it, but by presenting it in a different way and really identifying what is maybe in a basic package, a premium, maybe it's a bronze, a silver, gold packages, but you really, maybe it's a SMB, a mid-tier, and enterprise packages. Then you get really clear on what you're delivering and why, and you're selling value. You're not just charging them for something. You're really delivering value. So I think I'm just going to pause there and take a couple questions before we go into the next slides.
We do have one question that says, what are your thoughts on offering a customer training program without charging anything for it? Does that undervalue the service, or does it add value to the customer's contract?
Well, it really depends on what your goals are and who your audience is. Now, I was just talking to a colleague the other day who's telling me about a company she used to work at, where the education team, they brought in a new leader, and they're really trying to sell it at a high margin. And we agreed that that's kind of old school, like that's kind of 10 years ago. I ran customer education teams many years ago, and it was all about bringing in a high margin. But in the world of SaaS, you really need to drive adoption. And so it's all about knowing your users and knowing what they want and need, and knowing like the quality of the training. So maybe the quality of the training, because it's free. I'm not saying this about your company, but let's say because it's free, it's mediocre and it doesn't get updated very often. And maybe it's on demand, but you find out those customers really want and need instructor-led, and they want an instructor to ask questions to, because it's a really complex product and they'd be willing to pay a premium for that. You really need to know. So sometimes free absolutely is the answer. I wrote an article on freemium to premium, I believe. And so I'll send the link to Corey to share in the follow-up. But you can also, it doesn't, when you're creating packages and services, it doesn't have to be free or charging a lot. You could create a continuum of, there's some free content, and then you add higher value, and then there's charging a little more, and then there's a premium. So like, for example, if you want, I can stream, I can, go to YouTube and watch Taylor Swift, a clip of Taylor Swift in concert, right? But for free. But if I wanted to watch her whole concert, her Eras tour, then I would go to the movie theater when that was out, or I would pay, I think it's on the Disney Channel, that's going to cost me 20 bucks, right? Or, then maybe I want to be one of the people way up in the high stands. Then it's going to cost me a couple $100. I want to be right up front, and then it's going to cost me maybe $1,000, right? And then the real premium would be like, hey, it's my birthday, and I want Taylor to sing happy birthday to me at my birthday party. That might cost you $1 million, right? So you see how there's a whole freemium to premium continuum. So don't just think free or charge. There's a whole continuum. And but you need to know what you're doing and why, and you really need to know your audience and what they need.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so we'll continue and then we'll
Yep.
do more questions. All right. So you can't just create a product. You need to think like a product manager and bring it to market. So it's not just like there's that movie, if you may remember, Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. Just because you have something awesome doesn't mean anyone knows about it or anyone cares about it. So we're customer success professionals. We think a certain way. We need to start thinking like a product manager. So what does that mean? We need to think about the who, what, why, where, when, how. Okay. And a big part of that is, well, who is my audience? Who needs this? Why do they need it? Who will deliver this? When will it be delivered? And so some of that is really knowing your customers. An initial step would be to interview customers. Maybe you start with a service for one customer segment. Maybe it's a segment you're finding needs the most help. Now, I know you're all thinking, oh, well, enterprise customers will spend the money. But sometimes the smallest customers are the ones that need the most help because they don't have dedicated teams and the expertise, but they might be willing to pay for it, right? Now, remember, we always worry, oh, no one who wants to pay extra, but people are willing to pay for value. I have to tell you a story. Again, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. I have to tell you a story. I live in a small town, 7,500 people. There are two gyms in my town. The two gyms are next door to each other. Next door, okay? Not at separate ends. They are literally next door to each other. One of them costs 3 times more a month than the other one. The expensive one, I happen to join the expensive one, is packed. You need to know your audience, right? You need to know what they value. The cheaper one has been around since the 80s. People say the gym smells, the equipment is old, right? All you can do is go in there and use the equipment. I like classes. I did this morning, I did a spin class to get me revved up for today for the webinar. They got Pilates, yoga, TRX. I love taking classes, right? So it's state of the art. They got a state of the art, spinning studio, and people pay for it. So you need to know your audience. Those are two very different audiences, two gyms next door to each other. So it doesn't matter. You need to know your users. If your product is all about the low price option, then these premium packages may not be the best thing for you. But if you need to know your audience and what they want and need. All right, let's go back. So there's this great tool that I created called a go-to-market plan. And in just a few slides, I'll give you a link where you can get access to this. But this helps you for internally and externally, because one, as you start to think about, well, what would be included in our premium package? It makes you think about, well, what's the purpose? So it says, what is the offering and why do people need it? So really understand what are you trying to drive? Are you trying to drive first value? Are you trying to drive user activation? Are you trying to drive customer expansion? You need to know the purpose, and that needs to align with what matters to your leaders and your company right now. What are the success metrics? How are you going to know if this is successful? How are you going to measure the success? How will this product be delivered? Maybe you come up with this premium technical account manager or customer success engineer, but you don't have those people on the team, are you going to need to hire and onboard and train? How are you going to get the resources for that, right? You're going to need to make an internal business case. Maybe that it means you need to implement a learning management system. So you need to know what are the costs that go into creating this product. You're going to need to talk to other teams if you're creating a premium package that doesn't just include customer success, but training and support and professional services. You need to, make sure you're breaking down those silos and understand all of that. Then you create a business model. You need to know, is this going to be a break even? Are you going to have a margin? You need to know what the price is going to be. You need to determine what's the cost. Will help you to determine the price. What's the discounting policy? So there's a lot to think about. It's not just, okay, we're going to just start charging for something we've given away for free. That's why you need to think like a product manager. And a lot of the selling needs to be sold internally first. And then you need to work with marketing to start selling this to your customers. And when I've worked with teams, we've named these programs and we've promoted it on the website, and it becomes a key market differentiator. We're not just selling you software. We're not just walking away. We are here to transform your company, right? That's the message to share with your customers, and they are willing to pay for that. There's studies that show huge amount of technology implementations never get fully adopted. And so this has helped to bridge that gap to make sure your customers are making a great investment. Okay, so here are some tips to get started. You want to break down the internal silos, find out what do sales reps hear from customers. I talked with the customers of a company where they really struggled. They figured everything out on their own. And when they were done, it was really stressful for them, the whole implementation. They found out when they were done that this company sold professional services to help with that. And they're like, we would have gladly paid. We had no idea. So learn from your customers. What do they want to need? Start simple. Create one simple package. Don't try to do everything for everyone. Start with one product, one segment. You really want to leverage design thinking principles. And I have a article on my website on that, where you first start by listening, you ideate, you prototype, and repeat. So maybe you roll it out. Now, one company I'm working with, we're calling it the onboarding experiment. We created a premium onboarding service, and we're testing it out with the team. They don't have an onboarding team. And we're testing it out with 5 customers, and we're learning, hey, what works internally? What do the customers want to need? What do you hear? And then from what we're learning, then we'll determine, well, what does this service package look like? What does the team look like? What kind of skills do they need? How much would we charge for it? So that's what we're doing. We're experimenting. So then you could test that with a small customer segment, get their feedback. And part of the pilot, part of the experiment is saying, hey, we're going to interview you customers. Start with one simple package and scale it up or down to create other packages and then expand into other segments. So that's a journey that you can get started on, but think simple. I also have an article on my website on how to do experiments. So there's a lot you're not alone. There's a lot to learn here. So there's 3 things I want you to remember. 1, stop giving away valuable services for free. Start looking at what's our real value add. Stop giving it away for free. Stop volunteering your team away. Define a premium package that delivers results, that delivers value. You're not just going to charge for something. People don't pay unless they're obtaining value. And then 3, take the time to design a go-to-market plan to bring your new product to market. Otherwise, it'll just sit there and no one will sell it, or they'll just give it away. So what we're going to do is my next slide gives you a QR code and also a link where you can just answer a few questions, and then you get to download the go-to-market template. So while you have a look at that, why don't you enter in your questions and we can start answering questions. And we'll leave that up for a moment and then we will I'll move to stop sharing.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Donna, for the presentation. And yes, please, everyone, do submit your questions. We've already had some that have come in, so I will get started with those. We have someone that asked that on one of your slides, you had noted implementation and onboarding. Can you explain what the difference is between those two, if there is one?
Sure. So at some companies, they might have an implementation team, or they might have a professional services team versus onboarding, in that if the product is really long and complex to implement, like the onboarding team might be more guiding the journey, but they have real technical experts who are doing all the coding and the customizations and the integrations. I work with a lot of company where they have a lot of data migration or data conversion. There might be a whole data team, right? And those aren't quote even part of onboarding, but there's a huge cost to that.
Absolutely. Thanks for that clarification. Let's see. If you have a continuum of options, what is the threshold before it becomes overwhelming? Too many options for buyers? When does it start to feel like you're nickeling and diming your customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we don't just like randomly create products and start selling them and charging for them. You need to know what customers want and need and take them on a journey. And it might be, so here's an example. I'm going to go back to that gym example. So there's one price I could pay if I want to just go and work on the equipment, right? Then they have another price if you want to include the classes. Then they have another price for small group classes of 10 people. And they have another price if you want, they call it elite personal training, small groups of 4 people. And then there's another price if you want one-on-one personal training, right? So I think I probably said about 5 options. Now they might also do options where you get a subscription to maybe a recovery drink, right? So that after my workouts, I'm taking the recovery drink to help my body. Maybe they're selling nutritional supplements, right? But it's really, that's why we need to think like product marketers. We're not just randomly creating stuff. It's a journey. A lot of it is really knowing, your audience, of what they want and need, and also what drives behavior. So for example, just earlier today, I was talking with a client in London. They provide a tool, it's a transportation service, but so they sell to big companies, like big law firms, big financial firms, right? Their buyer is like the travel or the HR team. But unless they get user activations, which are people like you and me who are getting a taxi, they are dead in the water. So they have to have incentives to drive user activation. And so we talked a lot about, how are they going to communicate? That's a very different level of communicating, not to a company, but it's more like a consumer. So you really need to know your users and what they want and need. What's good. So for example, at this company, they might sell a change management service to really drive that change, because the business is going to make a lot more money or save a lot more money by fully adopting this platform. So again, you need to know what's needed. Like maybe there's this center of excellence, which you might charge hundreds of thousands of dollars for a year, but it includes a dedicated, a manager, exclusive resources and templates. So again, you're not gonna you need to know what your customers want and need.
Yeah.
I'll say that at least 3 more times today.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. We have another question that someone put in the chat that says, how do you add offerings to existing customers when they're used to or expecting what they've been getting for free already?
Yeah, so there's huge change management there, because one, sales reps are used to giving things away for free. and customers are used to getting things for free. So that's part of the journey. That's part of why you need to create a business case, and you need to define how you're going to market and sell this internally, and then market and sell it to customers. So here's a story of how I did this at a company. I was brought in to build out, it was education, customer enablement. Excuse me. And at that time, the professional services consultants were doing quote training, and they were doing a lot of it for free, or it was kind of included in part of their packages. And I built out all these offerings, and the fee was higher than what people were currently paying for professional services. And so what part of what I had to do internally was help change the terminology. So you might have so what we did was we called that technical, what the consultants were doing, we called that technical walkthroughs or mentoring. They weren't allowed to use the word training or enablement. And then that made and started to really do a distinction between what we offered. They did a lot of kind of talking about the product, but in the training we had, instructors, hands-on training, we had labs, we had training data. It was very robust and impactful and delivered results. So we had to define that distinction. And I find it takes about 6 months to really kind of take people on that journey. Back to that online learning portal I created for subscription, what I did was I created some initial content, and we charged just a small amount for that. And as we built out a more robust offering, then we started charging more and more. I had a fee per user, and then we had a fee per user per month, a fee per user per year, and then we had corporate fees, and we had an all-you-can-eat, like unlimited access for more fees. I worked with a member of the finance team on the pricing, so they really helped me to understand the costs and what to charge, the margins, and what the market could bear. There's a whole art and science around the pricing.
Got it. Yeah, lots to think about there. We had a question in the chat that says, around a dedicated CSM, do you think a dedicated CSM should always be an upcharge, or should a CSM be included at no additional charge, maybe depending on the ARR of the customer? And kind
Yeah,
of,
that's, things like that are really hard to give an answer because it depends on, what your customers are paying. It depends on, like if you are charging, I'm talking with a company right now, they charge $1 million for their product. They better include a dedicated CSM, right?
sure.
I'm paying $1 million a year, but if you're charging $10,000 annually, you might need to charge for a dedicated CSM. I have to tell you, I see so many companies who are spending more to onboard and engage their customers than what customers are spending with them. So you might, like, for onboarding, let's go back to that smaller, like they sell products that are like $5,000, and they're spending about $7,000 to onboard and enable their customers. Like they're losing their company's money. So they need to learn how to scale that. And if customers are begging for more of a dedicated engagement, then you pay for it. So if customers want premium services, great, deliver it, but charge for it.
I think that makes sense. What are the kind of most common objections you've gotten from sales teams, if any, about introducing premium packages?
Well, they're always worried that the price is increasing. Yeah, so they're worried about they're always worried it's gonna slow the sale down, right? Time kills all deals. So they're worried they don't want to introduce something else. And that's why, again, you need to help them sell the value of it. This sets us apart. We have the proven workable method to ensure your teams will benefit as quickly as possible. This is going to increase your return on investment. This is going to help you make more money, save more money. So you really have to build out all of that value prop. and enable your and do sales enablement. Again, just because you build it doesn't mean they're going to sell it. So you need to define all of that value prop and talking points for the sales reps, and then really help them. And that's a whole journey. Again, that may take several months.
Got it. For the companies that have already started charging for CS services, any recommendations on how to measure that success? Like what metrics maybe they should be tracking?
Well, it depends on what metrics are important at your company. So if, for example, at this company that does the transport service, it's all about user activation because they take about 3 months to roll out their platform. But if people, the employees are not booking rides on taxis through their product, they're not going to have the company this company will not make any money. They will not renew the account. So for this company, it's all about activation, right? If you might say, oh, well, how long does onboarding take? But if it doesn't drive activation, it doesn't count. So you need to know what matters for your business. If you already have premium packages, then you might kind of start with capturing baselines and look at what are you curious about? What assumptions do you have? You might explore, again, at this one company I worked at where we sold training, what we found was that well-trained customers, and the data showed that when customers took 3 or more training events, they were, quote, well-trained, it increased renewal rate by 15% and net promoter score by 30%. And that was great to hear, but only 15% of customers were well trained. So then we knew that this premium service drove renewals and net promoter score, but there wasn't much adoption. So that was an opportunity to really increase the number of customers who would benefit from that, which would have a huge impact on the business. Another company I worked with, they found that well-trained customers were 150% more likely to renew, and they only had like 5% trained customers. So huge opportunities there. They brought me in to bring their education customer enablement up to kind of current standards and really drive the sales of that.
So, excuse me. You talked about kind of thinking like a product manager when building out these packages. Could you maybe like talk a little bit about what that could look like or what that means?
Yeah, so that means knowing who's your audience and knowing what they want and need. It means defining a service or a product that delivers value. It means knowing the value, the behavioral change, the metrics you're trying to impact. It means creating a sales and marketing plan to get internal teams on board. It means creating a sales and marketing plan to get customers on board. It means knowing what it costs to deliver this service. It means knowing the tools and the resources you need to launch it and to maintain it.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's see. We have a number of questions. Some of them are kind of long, so I'm trying to read through them at the same time. Do you recommend still offering a free low-level onboarding package maybe for customers in addition to having paid ones, like having an option there that isn't a premium package? Or would you recommend that all are paid packages?
Well, again, it depends. So if your customers are paying $5,000, and they're really smart technical people and don't need any help, you might have a free
Yeah.
one. But if your customers are paying $100,000 and onboarding is complex, why would you give it away for free? Remember, it's not about, don't worry about charging. It's about worry about delivering value. People pay for value.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Let's see, maybe one more question. Um, any tips for how a small company that caters to customers that either have no team or small teams could maybe adapt to a pay per service model?
Yeah, because they probably are so overwhelmed doing so many different things, wearing so many hats that they need your help to thrive on this product. So sometimes the smallest customers need the most help. Now, you're not going to charge them. Let's say your product costs $10,000 a year. You're not going to charge
Hmm.
them $100,000. So it needs to be in line with that. But again, find out what they want to need, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe they need managed services like a product admin. So for example, maybe your company's implementing Churn Zero, but needs a Churn Zero administrator. You know, I don't know if Churn Zero provides a service like that, or there might be other organizations that provide that. It means that you don't have to hire somebody to do this or use
Mhm.
half of a headcount to do this. So ultimately, you actually come out ahead because you're not incurring all those costs internally, and you know you pay for somebody who's already trained up, right? So there again, there's a huge service there. A lot of companies do this for Salesforce admins, right?
Yep.
So they outsource a Salesforce admin, and so there might be managed services, like an ongoing service in that way.
That makes a lot of sense.
And you know, I know it
Yeah.
sounds like you all are trying to, you know, there's a lot to figure out. So you know, the first, I just want to go back to share some slides here.
Yeah.
The first step, you want to stop. You want to let me just go back to these ones. Move that away. You want to leverage design thinking principles. Now, if all of this feels overwhelming, you know, this is what I do with companies. Let's chat. Let me know how I can help you. If you're like, wow, this could make a big difference, I can't figure it out, then let me know how I can help. I do in consulting engagements, I do coaching. I have a business coach. I can't figure all this out about being in business. Like I need help. So I pay the experts. So that's something to think about. Yeah, I will help you to expedite this and make it impactful. I'm just going to go back to this slide so you can get the template and if you haven't had a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for resharing that. We did have someone wanting that link again, and I will be sure to include this link in the follow-up
Oh,
emails
thank
we
you.
send out tomorrow as well. So thank you so much, Donna, for joining us today and sharing all your tips on premium packages. Um, at the end of this webinar, you'll see a survey pop up, and I would appreciate it if you just take a moment to provide your feedback, just to let us know how we can better support you with other webinar programs and what you thought about today's program. And we will be sending out the link to the recording tomorrow. And thank you everyone for joining us, and have a great rest of your day. And thanks again, Donna.
Thank you. I just want to remind you, you know, the key is to transform your customer's business, not just go live with your products. So you want to, you know, I just want to wrap up with those three key takeaways, 3 points to remember. What can you stop giving away for free? What is, you know, some initial package you can deliver results. You don't have to figure it all out right now. And just start, you know, leverage that go-to-market template. Just start playing around with some ideas. That's going to really help you. And let me know how I can help you.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much, Donna. Thanks everyone else. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you.